Hello and welcome to yet another video. After ranking all of the corps in the base game of Terraforming Mars, as well as its most quintessential expansion, Prelude, I want to take on the challenge to try and balance these corps and make the game more fun and fair for everyone. What are my goals when balancing these corps? First of all, I don't intend to bring all of the corps to exactly the same level. I'm fine with some corps being a bit stronger than others. I just don't want to have any clearly overpowered corporations and don't want any corps to be boring or unplayable in 99% of cases. This is why my balancing will only apply to corps in the tiers S, C and F. I'm completely happy with then hopefully only having A and B tier corps. Secondly, I want to keep the identity of these corps. I want to change Thorgate, but I don't want to remove its identity of the Power Corp. Also, two more things that I need to clarify. Since the tier lists this is based on only consider base game and prelude gameplay, my balancing idea will stick to this. And secondly, of course there have been many ideas thrown around to balance all of these corps already, for example on the Hodgepodge Discord, on Reddit or on the web app. But I have not specifically looked at any of them while making this video, because I wanted to come up with my own ideas. But with that out of the way, let's get started. The first corp in need of balancing, and more specifically in need of a nerf, is Credicor. Why is it so strong? Well, it's super flexible, extremely rich at the start of the game, and can work with basically any strategy. It can also save your ass with a bad starting hand, since you have cheaper standard project greeneries and cities, so you can maybe try a gardener play with that. I like the flexibility aspect, and I think any corp that has a bonus on standard projects is super interesting, so I intend to keep these aspects. And although my solution seems quite boring, I just think this corp should start with less money. Make it 48 MC, and this corp is already fine as is. I promise not all of my ideas are this boring though. To prove this, let's get to Point Luna. With this corp we have a totally different problem. It has an absolutely busted ability that is super important to its identity, so we need to keep that as close as possible. We also cannot remove the Earth tag due to lore reasons, since this corp has its headquarters on the moon, and the space and titanium theme needs to stay because it's a mining corporation. So how do we fix it? First of all, instead of straight up drawing a free card whenever you play an Earth tag, we change the ability to the Marsu effect for Earth tags. You first need to discard a card before you draw a new one. So either you have to pick up more cards than you like for cycling, or you run the risk to exchange good cards for bad ones. I don't think this would be enough to make Point Luna A tier though. I will also change up its economic situation. We lower the MC amount you start off with to 32 and exchange the titanium prod for 4 titanium resources. This means you have higher starting capital but are less flexible and have no free prod. And with that, I hope Point Luna could be A tier. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments, because I'm really not sure at all. Next up, let's tackle the other Earth tag corp, Teractor. Similar to Credicor, this corp is mainly S tier due to its great wealth at the start of the game. But here I think we can actually change the ability a bit to make this corp slightly weaker. I always found it weird that Teractor just straight up has the same ability as Earth Office. So let's change it. The flavor text on the corp says that Teractor has become the strongest corporation on Earth due to its army of lawyers and businessmen. When I read lawyers, I immediately thought of the card lawsuit and how it allows you to steal money from someone if he has done something specific. In that case, if he has destroyed any of your resources that gen. I want to give Teractor such an ability centered around Earth tags. In my mind, Teractor has monopoly rights on Earth technology, so whenever someone plays an Earth tag, they need to give you 1 MC as a kind of patent right payment. It's not crazy impactful, but it can certainly add up over a whole game and makes you feel like you're the only one allowed to play these cards. It's true that in total this is just a 1 MC difference to the original ability per played card, but now opponents decide when it gets triggered, and if they just refuse to play any Earth tags, you will be way worse off. At the same time, they sacrifice playing some of the best cards in the game. With this change to Teractor's ability, I'm quite certain we can keep its starting capital at 60 MC. And lastly in S tier we have Vitor. This corp has in my mind the strongest economic ability in the base game plus preludes, and that's what we need to fix. I think I have quite an easy solution for this. Instead of granting a constant 3 MC rebate for any non-negative point card, I want to change Vitor's ability to grant 1 MC based on the points you get. A card like Natural Preserve will now only grant you a 1 MC rebate, while a card like ICS will grant you 4 MC. But how impactful would this be? Out of the 215 project cards in the base game plus preludes, 75 do have positive points on them, including that grant points per number of resources on them, for example. That's around 35%, and Vitor in its current state grants you a 3 MC rebate on all of them. With my fix, all cards that grant a variable amount of points, so stuff like Ecozone or Capital, would not grant any rebate at all. That already cuts down the percentage to 26%. The 56 cards left are primarily cards that grant just 1 point. 38 of them to be exact. 14 grant 2 points, 3 grant 3 points, and just 1 card grants 4 points. My change therefore would be a massive nerf, since not only would you get the rebate less often, but you would also get a much smaller rebate most of the time. Also, most cards that grant you 2 or 3 MC rebate would still not be great plays in the early game, since a lot of their value is based on their points. So this change makes Vitor a much more late game focused corporation. I think this would even push down Vitor to B tier, which I'm fine with though. Maybe it's even a bit too harsh, but in that case we could just increase the starting capital a bit. But overall, I'm happy with the change. Now let's move on to the corps that desperately need a buff, and the first one is UNMI, which I have placed in C tier. It's famous for its all-in terraforming rush playstyle, and of course for failing at that more often than not. You need an incredibly specific starting hand with this corp to do well, and even if you have that, UNMI often feels too poor to do what you want to. In the game's lore, UNMI is the organization carrying out the world government's own terraforming projects. So why isn't it good at that from the get-go? To make UNMI stronger, I think we need to change 2 things. We need to give it some more room to breathe in terms of finances, and we need to make it better at terraforming. To achieve the former, I don't want to increase this corp's starting capital, I just want to make its ability cheaper, so it feels less punishing and more rewarding to use. I think it should only cost 1 MC to activate. That already grants you a total of 20 MC in a 10 gen game if you use it every gen. I think to better represent that UNMI is the world government's own terraforming organization, we need to give it some heat and plant prot. 2 heat and 1 plant prot to be exact. Of course, those are best combined with more of the corresponding production types, but a heat prot alone guarantees you a free TR bump in Gen 5 and 9, if the game lasts long enough. In gens where you convert plants or heat, you don't need a terraforming card, making you much more flexible in what you can pick up in a draft and play. You have more money for development and card draw. But next up, we have to talk about the difficult cases, the corps in F tier, and we start with Thorgate. The problem with this corp is that its main focus point, in terms of synergies, is the power tech, and there just aren't enough good power tech combos. In addition to that, power techs often grant one thing and one thing only: power prot. Yes, with Thorgate these cards are often so cheap that you can basically use them as heat producers, but that's slow and inflexible. Of course, I still want to keep Thorgate's identity as the power tech corp, but we need to buff it substantially to push it out of F tier. First of all, I want to give it a secondary tech in the form of a science tech. This makes playing the 2 best power techs in the base game, Mass Converter and Quantum Extractor, much easier, and it also fits my intended change to the ability. So let's move on to that. In addition to the 3 MC discount for playing a power tech, I want to add the following effect. Whenever you're increasing your power prot, increase it by 1 more step. This means no matter whether you're using the standard project power, play fuel generators or giant space mirror, you always get 1 more power prot than you would normally get. With this change, you can very easily amass insane amounts of power prot very quickly and become a strong heat producer. Maybe it's too strong, but I like it. And lastly for today's video, let's talk about Phobolog. This corp is notorious for being extremely poor if you don't get a few space tags that you can spend your titanium on. I mean, you cannot even buy all 10 cards at the start if you wanted to. That's something that needs to be changed, and I have some additional ideas to balance this corp. But first of all, instead of 23 MC and 10 titanium, we give Phobolog 32 MC and 6 titanium. This is lower overall starting capital than in the base game, but it makes Phobolog much more flexible and allows you to pick this corp even if you don't have plenty of strong early game space tags on hand. In addition, I want to allow Phobolog to draw 2 space tags as its first action. This is very similar to acquired space agency, and that's on purpose. First of all, the flavor text on the corporation card states that Phobolog acquired several space programs, and due to that wording, I'd say it's fair to assume it's also acquired some of their project rights. Secondly, this starting bonus is another push towards the independence of a perfect starting hand. Sure, it would be great to have some space tags on hand already, but at least you're guaranteed to draw some for free now. I think these changes would just be enough to push Phobolog into B tier. And with that, we're done. All corps of the base game and Prelude expansion balance to fit into A or B tier. At least, I assume. What do you think about these changes? Do you have other suggestions on how to balance these corps, or would you want to balance additional corps? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, I would highly appreciate if you liked and subscribed. It really helps me out. Please also check out my Twitch and my Twitter that are linked in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.